Hey there, movie lovers. Welcome back to Rocky Watches Movies. Today we're diving into the hilarious caper of the 1988 comedy A Fish Called Wanda. This brilliant blend of crime, chaos and comedy brought together a stellar cast and some of the most memorable moments in 80s cinema. But how much do you really know about what happened behind the scenes? So grab a fish, hold on to your wig, and let's dive into 20 things you never knew about A Fish Called Wanda. The film had been years, even decades in the making. John Cleese and Charles Crichton first met in 1969 and began discussing ideas for a comedy heist film. Although they went their separate ways professionally, Cleese continued seeking opportunities to collaborate with Crichton. More than 10 years later, he finally found the chance when they worked together on a series of business management training videos. Over the next few years, they met periodically to develop ideas and refine the script. In total, the script writing and pre-production process lasted more than 5 years and cost Cleese $150,000 of his own money. In the 1950s, Charles Crichton was a renowned director of Ealing comedy films, produced by Ealing Studios, and was celebrated for his work on titles such as The Titfield Thunderbolt, Hue and Cry, and The Lavender Hill Mob. By 1988, however, he had not directed a feature film for 20 years, although he had continued working on television shows and documentary shorts. He came out of semi-retirement to direct what would become his final film at the invitation of John Cleese. Unsurprisingly, A Fish Called Wanda owed a great deal to the Ealing comedies, particularly Crichton's own The Lavender Hill Mob, a heist comedy starring Alec Guinness and Stanley Holloway as a pair of bumbling bank robbers. Cleese, however, maintained that any similarities between the Ealing comedies and A Fish Called Wanda were unintentional, though he welcomed the comparison. He later explained that his memory of the classic Ealing films was very much alive, even if he had not been consciously trying to write an Ealing-style comedy. Although the idea had been brewing in John Cleese's mind for years, its final shape was influenced by an experience in the United States. While looking for a screening of his then new film, Clockwise, he discovered it was relegated to small cinemas at awkward times. The film's distributor explained bluntly that American audiences had little interest in British comedies, and that Clockwise had secured a wider release only because of Cleese's Monty Python and Fawlty Towers fame. This prompted Cleese to create a film with broader transatlantic appeal. Michael Palin drew on his own experiences when portraying Ken Pyle, as his father had stuttered. This informed his performance, including the detail that Ken's stutter was less pronounced around people he trusted, such as George and Wanda, and more noticeable around those who made him uncomfortable, like Otto West. The Michael Palin Centre for Stammering, a specialist speech and language therapy centre in London, was named with Palin's agreement following his role in the film. His ongoing support and involvement have helped raise the centre's profile significantly. Unlike most films where one person is in charge and actors are hesitant to speak up, this project was entirely collaborative, which Jamie Lee Curtis found liberating and, by her own admission, spoilt her for future work. Her enthusiasm over the 2-week rehearsal period was so evident that Palin presented her with a shirt bearing the words, "Wait, I have an idea." Although John Cleese is solely credited for the screenplay, he has acknowledged the contributions of Jamie Lee Curtis, Kevin Kline, Michael Palin, and Mariah Aitken in developing lines for their respective characters. He also stated that 13 people, including First Assistant Director Jonathan Benson, offered suggestions that were ultimately incorporated into the script. Cleese named his character Archie Leach after the movie star Cary Grant, who was born Archibald Leach. Although his bumbling lawyer bore little resemblance to Grant, Cleese explained that he chose the name because they shared a hometown, and because it was the closest he would ever come to being Cary Grant. The film originally began as a much darker comedy, but test audiences in America were uneasy with the film's cruelty and its lack of a romantic resolution. As a result, Crichton and the cast returned for several reshoots. In addition to softening Palin's character by reshooting part of a scene in which he ran over a dog, they also ended up reshooting the film's ending 3 times. In addition to altering the ending, Cleese trimmed several minutes from the film's penultimate scene, in which Archie attempts to get the stuttering Ken to reveal the location of Wanda, Otto, and the diamonds. Under pressure, Ken's stutter worsens and he struggles to say the words Cathcart Towers. Originally, the scene consisted of a Monty Python-style sequence of increasingly absurd antics. Ken attempting to sing the words, a moment that remains in the final film, Archie trying to feed a tissue through a typewriter, and Ken writing with toothpaste on a window. Cleese, however, felt that the scene arriving at the film's climax was overly long and slowed the plot, so he cut most of it out. Kevin Kline's Otto is depicted as a pompous pseudo-intellectual who mangles everything from Buddhist philosophy to Nietzsche. John Cleese later revealed that the character was inspired by the real-life self-help figure Zen Master Rama, known as the Yuppie Guru. Cleese recalled discovering the idea in Los Angeles magazine, which featured a guru, likely Rama, who looked about 32, seemed unsure of himself, and wore a hairstyle resembling a late September dandelion. What truly struck Cleese was the bold slogan promoting the guru's weekend seminars. Buddhism gives you the competitive edge. He found it irresistibly funny and built Otto's essence around that single line. Although Charles Crichton is the sole credited director on the film, John Cleese was officially listed as co-director during production. Cleese later said that he had actually done very little directing, agreeing to the role mainly because the film's backers were uneasy about allowing the 78-year-old Crichton to work unsupervised. Cleese did direct a few scenes with Michael Palin, primarily to give Crichton time to get a head start on the editing. On set, Crichton wore a t-shirt given to him by Cleese, which bore the inscription, "Age and treachery will always overcome youth and skill." The character Portia is portrayed by Cynthia Cleese, who is notably the real-life daughter of John Cleese. This father-daughter connection likely provided an extra level of comfort and understanding on set. Kevin Kline pleaded with actor, executive producer and writer John Cleese to allow Otto West to speak French rather than Italian during his attempts to seduce Wanda, as Kline himself spoke French. Cleese, however, insisted that the character had to use Italian. Running out of Italian phrases and improvised lines, Kline began singing Volare, worried that director Charles Crichton would not call cut, since the producers did not own the rights to the song at the time of filming. During the filming of A Fish Called Wanda, Jamie Lee Curtis faced one of the movie's most notoriously hilarious and awkward moments, Kevin Kline's boudoir finish. To prevent herself from breaking character and laughing at the exaggerated expressions Kline was making, Curtis buried her face in pillows, a humorous yet practical tactic to maintain the scene's integrity. Curtis herself was originally slated for a nude scene, but she cleverly suggested that the humour would land far better if it were a man in that situation. Taking her advice to heart, John Cleese ended up performing the nude scene himself, crafting one of the film's most memorable and laugh-out-loud moments. The scene where Kevin Kline eats a live fish was cleverly staged using jelly replicas rather than real seafood. Kline has said that he even offered to eat actual live fish to make the scene more authentic, but the filmmakers wisely refused, opting for the safer and less controversial alternative. Tragically, 71-year-old Danish doctor Orla Benson died from laughing during a screening of the film in Copenhagen, dying of what was described as heart failure induced by laughing. Apparently, it was the scene in which Ken has French fries stuck up his nose that started the laughing fit. Doctors explained that Benson's laughter had caused his heart muscles to contract so rapidly that the organ could not pump sufficient blood to the brain. Comedy films seldom perform well at the Oscars, but A Fish Called Wanda proved to be an exception. The movie received 3 nominations: Best Original Screenplay for Cleese and Crichton, Best Director, and Best Supporting Actor for Kevin Kline, who ultimately won the statue. Cleese won the BAFTA Award for Best Actor, and Michael Palin won for Best Actor in a Supporting Role. A Fish Called Wanda outperformed several high-budget blockbusters, including Die Hard and Coming to America, as well as the Oscar-winning Rain Man, to become the top video rental of 1989. Its success was partly attributed to an advertising partnership with Cadbury Schweppes, which saw grocery stores covered with promotional material for the film for weeks on end. The film premiered in New York City on the 7th of July 1988 in the US. It reached number 1 at the box office and ultimately grossed over $62 million in the United States and Canada. It became the highest-grossing British film of all time, with earnings of $12 million. In the end, it earned a worldwide total of nearly $190 million. And there you have it, folks. You now know a little bit more about A Fish Called Wanda. If you enjoyed the video, which I presume you did as you got this far, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos coming to Rocky Watches Movies. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.